Man up. Real men don't cry. Tough it out. We've all heard this before. These phrases have long been part of the blueprint for how men are expected to handle their emotions. So today let's talk about something I'm passionate about, men in therapy, or more precisely, too few men in therapy.
I take it you're not a fan of this kind of work.
No, ma'am.
Why is that, do you think?
You want the truth?
I'm only interested in the truth, Ted.
So why the gap? Why are more women likely to go to therapy than men? And if men do make it through the doors of the therapy room, why is it hard for them to continue?
You don't know me. We don't have history. And yet you just expect me to spill my guts about all the gory details of my life. The fights, the mistakes, my deep, dark secrets.
So let's try to understand why and what we can do about it. Now, to say that men don't seek out and go to psychological therapy just isn't true because, of course, many men do, but they don't seek it out as much as women do. Let's start with biology. Men and women are hardwired differently. Studies suggest that women have an easier time putting a name to their feelings and talking about them. They score higher in empathy, emotion recognition, and social sensitivity tests, while men are likelier to keep things bottled up.
I can just imagine my old man with his buddies sitting at their lawn chairs, laughing their asses off that I missed a whole day of football because I'm trying to get in touch with my emotions. These guys didn't do that crap. These were men.
That's not to say men don't have feelings or that they don't respond to emotional cues, but how they process their feelings is different, and we're going to talk about that later. And for many guys, feelings are something to be managed, like a problem to be solved. It's not about sitting down and chatting about how they feel. It's about finding a way to fix what's bothering them.
So what's going on?
I need something to help me sleep.
Why?
I can't sleep.
Why?
I don't know. Look, any kind of sleeping pill will do.
Sure. Let's just talk a little bit.
Oh, God, please listen on.
Overall, men tend to use a problem-solving or solution-focused perspective to work through uncomfortable feelings. On the other hand, women tend to be more in touch with their emotions and benefit from speaking about them with others. And I'm not saying women can't be logical and rational in their approach to things and men can't be emotional. But research studies show us these differences between men and women tend to show statistically significant differences. Men are often communicating their emotions in a completely different way. Now let's just say a mate of mine is going through a tough divorce. I'm not going to call him up and pour out a stream of, things like, "You must be in so much pain," or "How are you feeling?" Instead, I might say something like, "Keep your head up. There are plenty more fish in the sea. You'll be right." It's not that I don't care. Far from it. It's how we men often express our concerns and also just the support for each other, which is just blatantly different.
You're getting a divorce?
Yeah.
Amy heard you crying in the bathroom. We all thought it was cancer.
Oh.
Thank God, man.
Yeah, just my relationship.
Men also sometimes show a positive feeling in a negative way. A jab, a tease, a joke. We might tease a mate who's achieved something, not to put them down, but to say that we're proud of them.
Your brother, he's down again.
What is his deal?
I didn't hear my lungs. I'd scream at you.
Oh, now you're gonna blame me?
Let's take a daiquiri timeout. Daiquiris.
With a pat on the back, letting them know we see their success and we're happy for them. But it's said as a joke or a jibe. So it's like we know that biology plays a part. But what else has led to these differences in how men and women process and express emotions? Society has rules for how men should act. And let's just say being open about emotions isn't always on the front line. From a young age, boys hear messages like, "Big boys don't cry," or "Man up."
I broke my collarbone in a football game. There was Dad up in the stands giving me the old be tough. So I played 2 more downs before I passed out. Feelings.
And this societal script doesn't just disappear when men grow up. It follows them into adulthood, creating a sort of like emotional straitjacket. Men are often expected to be the rock, the unshakable pillar of strength. And while there's nothing wrong with being strong, these expectations can become a barrier. It can make men feel like they must almost like keep their struggles to themselves, that seeking help is somehow like a betrayal of their masculinity.
My understanding from Dr. Cusimano, your family physician, is that you collapsed, possibly a panic attack. You were unable to breathe.
They said it was a panic attack, and they sent me here.
You don't agree that you had a panic attack? How are you feeling now?
Good. Fine. Back at work.
For men, the perceived stigma of having a mental issue can be very daunting. On one side, there's the weight of their emotions. On the other, there's the pressure of societal expectations. So what we have is a situation where men might be struggling silently, feeling like they can't reach out for help without risking almost like their identity as a man. So for many men, the idea of going into a therapy office and talking to a therapist about how they feel or exploring a situation they have been in is just not natural for them.
Harvey, we need to talk because our relationship needs tending.
Our what? Needs what?
You heard me. We're in a relationship and it's not working.
Louis, what exactly are you getting at?
Dr. Lifshitz.
Your therapist?
Yeah, and he agreed to...
No.
But...
Louis, there's no way I'm going to a session with your therapist.
A lot of guys look at the idea of therapy and think, why would I pay $250 for 1 hour to just sit and talk to someone I don't know? And they're just going to listen to me about complaining and moaning about how I want things to be better or different. Why would I do that? Men often turn and run for the hills if therapy is even hinted at.
A guy comes in here against every instinct of privacy, of self-reliance that he has, and what do you do? What do you do, huh?
It's also true that mental health professionals, such as myself, tend to use more emotional coping methods and strategies than problem-solving strategies. So this bias exists towards a more feminine approach to providing therapy.
And we need to work on your anger issues, Elliot. You're angry at everyone, at society. I know you have a lot to be angry about, but keeping it to yourself and staying quiet like you're doing, it's not going to help you. There's pain underneath. That's where our work needs to go.
And it's not to say that this is wrong or right, but it's a bias that tends to deter men from seeking psychological therapy. A man sitting in a therapy session faced with a barrage of questions about how he's feeling might feel like he's entered a very unsafe place. With each time that someone says or asks him, so how do you feel? His discomfort grows until he feels like he's going to just explode. He's expected to have all the answers, to give a voice to his emotions in a way he's never had before.
And what happens every morning you step out of bed?
What the fuck is this all of a sudden?
I'm just asking a question.
Oh, so you're taking a stand here now? Huh? You pick here to make a stand? After all this time, telling me that nothing's my fault because of poor parenting.
It can feel like he's getting it all wrong. He's inadequate and he's failing. This feeling, this sense of floundering can make men want to bolt for the door. Because who wants to stick around in a place where you feel like an absolute novice, a beginner, someone who just doesn't know what they're doing? Often if you ask a man about a hard-hitting emotional blow, like being dumped by a partner, someone they cared about and loved, you won't often hear a response like, I was drowning in sadness, or I was scared I'd always be alone. No, they'll tell you it's like a gut punch. It's like my heart got yanked out. Men often translate their hurt or emotions into physical terms, and they can convert their emotional pain into physical action because that's where they've been taught to find release. It's not about avoiding the pain, it's about coping with it in a way they understand. For many guys, the physical response to an emotion is the main event, with the talking part being the undercard. It's not that the discussions aren't meaningful. It's just that the physical experience is more pronounced and immediate for many men. For them, working through emotions might mean hitting a punching bag when they've ticked someone off, or running till their lungs burn when they're anxious. They find their way back to balance in the doing, the moving, the feeding of their muscles and their bones. The difference is so important. It's not about saying one way is better than the other. It's about understanding that when it comes to emotions and feelings, men and women might speak different languages.
At first, I figured that the split was just something temporary, something that you two would work out and get past. But after tonight, I think it's pretty clear that you two genuinely do not want to get back together.
Of course, there's lots of overlap, but they're different. And when it comes to couples therapy, it's like seriously a real challenge to get men on board.
Well, the only logical thing that I can think of is for her to move out of the condo and then to pay me some sort of a penalty as compensation for the labor that I did all around the condo.
What? What? Pay you compensation for your labor?
It's often one partner saying, "We need to see a therapist." And no surprise, this is often the female. And you can almost see the shutters slamming down in a man's mind. It's not that they don't know the importance of trying to sort out their relationship and get things back on track. It feels like if they agree to couples therapy, they're stepping into an arena where they're being set up to lose, to fail. And research backs this up. Men fear being outgunned in couples therapy. They're up against someone, their partner, who can easily express feelings and articulate every emotion and thought.
You kept saying open and fruitful and other weird stuff that's not feeling. It's just more talking in short half sentences. And you managed to turn feeling into a job or an activity, and it was exhausting.
And there they are, struggling to find the words. Ask a man how he feels, and "I don't know," or "I'm not sure," are often what you get back. They might feel like they're on trial in a courtroom and the judge is waiting to hear their side, but their partner has just laid out every grievance, complete with how they feel, with, it's like perfect clarity. And now it's their turn to speak, but the words just don't come. They're outmatched, not because they don't have feelings, but because they can't present them as their partner does, neatly, clearly, coherently, rationally.
David, how did that make you feel?
I know my truth.
Excuse me?
I know my truth.
Did you say I know my truth? Oh, boy.
And if we look at the historical development of therapy, this can also shed some more light. You see, therapy wasn't always as we know it today. It has its roots in a time when women were the primary clients. Now, this isn't just a random fact. It's essential to understanding why therapy might feel so foreign to men. Around the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Sigmund Freud began developing the foundations of psychoanalysis and saw predominantly female patients. He developed the idea that discussing one's issues can be healing.
Well, if a patient is calm, Yaffe stretches out at my feet. But if a patient is agitated, Yaffe stands at my side.
And this led to the term talking here, which came from one of Freud's first patients, Anna O. Initially, Freud treated Anna with a conventional, authoritative approach, but Anna urged Freud to simply listen. And when he complied, her symptoms, they improved. This discovery was literally a turning point in psychiatry and psychology.
Truth is, you're terrified. We're all terrified. See, you bury your doubts, you bury your memories of the war. But at the core of your being, we're all cowards before death.
The approach may not be the best fit for men. Now, fast forward to today, and we can see the ripple effects of this history. The therapy world is still, in many ways, a reflection of its origins. It's like a building that was designed with specific people in mind. And while that's great for those who fit the mold, it can leave men feeling like square pegs trying to fit into round holes. This historical backdrop helps us understand the systemic bias in therapy. It's not about therapists intentionally sidelining men or being dismissive of their experiences. It's more about a structure built on a foundation that naturally fits with women's emotional processing. This bias is like an invisible thread woven through the fabric of therapy, influencing how it's practiced and experienced.
I hope we can forge a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. This is a safe space Wednesday, a sanctuary where we can discuss anything. What you're thinking, feeling, your views on the world, personal philosophy.
That's easy.
It's about acknowledging the need for a more flexible approach that considers the many ways people experience and process emotions. So, for example, if we look at depression and how it shows itself in men and women, you might think it looks the same, but that's not quite the case. For men, it can show itself in very different ways that might not scream depression at first glance. Remember how we talked about men being solution-focused and society's shaping of masculinity? Well, these factors directly affect how depression shows up in men. Instead of the classic signs of like sadness or crying, depression in men often wears different masks. A man might snap at the most minor things or seem constantly on edge. It might take throwing themselves into work or exercise, almost like they're trying to kind of like outrun the feelings. The way men are taught to deal with emotions and the societal script they're handed can make navigating depression even trickier. Men might feel like they're supposed to be the unshakable problem solvers.
No matter what you've heard, this process will not take years. In my heart, I know we cannot be defeated because there is an answer that will open the door. There is a way around this system.
So reaching out for help can feel like admitting defeat. So where do we go from here? Therapy doesn't need to be a one-size-fits-all solution. So first things first, we need to broaden the therapy toolkit. It's time to move beyond the traditional talk therapy model and use approaches that speak to men's action-oriented nature. This could mean more practical problem-solving techniques, using physical movement to explore emotions, or even technology to provide support in a way that feels less intrusive and more accessible. Men should feel that they can voice their dissatisfaction or discomfort with the therapy process. It's about creating a partnership with men to ensure therapy is provided in a way that they find valuable and helpful.
Now, come on, I need you to help me control my emotions.
Well, emotions can't be controlled, Lucifer.
What? Wasn't that your entire job?
My job is to help you understand your emotions.
So my advice for men is to be open with their therapist. When you sit down with them, you might need to say something like, look, I'm not the best at this feeling stuff. I'm more of a straight shooter. Encourage your therapist to mix it up a bit. Instead of the usual, how does that make you feel questions, followed by silence, ask them to guide you through it to help you understand the emotions you're feeling. And let me tell you, as a therapist myself, there's nothing better than someone telling you what's not ticking, what's not working. It's not about complaining. It's about teamwork. Now, here are some changes I think would help men seek out therapy. So firstly, I would say to shop around for the right therapist. Psychotherapy is not a one-size-fits-all. Finding the right fit is a key for guys. It's like finding a coach. You need someone who gets you. And also I want to shift the focus from purely exploring emotions to finding practical solutions. Clear objectives and actionable therapy steps can help men be more actively involved. And let's talk about those somatic therapies that are grabbing the spotlight lately. These therapies put the body front and center, helping you to work through emotions more naturally. It's like translating emotional language into physical movement. In my practice, when I encourage men to get off the couch and into movement, it's often when we make the most significant, real breakthroughs. So adding something like Tai Chi or yoga to the mix can also help. These aren't just movements. They're about syncing mind and body. It's clear that typical therapy setups don't always mesh well with men. So what we're looking at here is the need for a shift, a way to make therapy more accessible for men, to see it not as a last resort, but as a viable first option. It's about making therapy sessions feel less like a deep dive into an emotional pit and more like a conversation that recognizes and respects how men typically think and operate. In essence, it's about shaping therapy to be a space where men can talk in a place that feels genuine to them. If we can manage that, we could see more men benefiting from the support everyone sometimes needs. Therapy should feel less like stepping into the unknown and more like starting a conversation that matters, just like any other aspect of life. It's not about changing men to fit therapy. It's about changing the way we provide therapy to fit men.